Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to do a mid-month check-in. So once again, welcome back. I am so glad you decided to click on this video. So like I said, today I am going to do a mid-month check-in and kind of talk about my reading plans for the rest of November. Also, sorry in advance if there's a kitty coming in and out of the frame. My husband and I just got back from vacation yesterday and she is being very, very needy. So, I mean, I never mind when I see people's cats in videos, but if you see her, I'm not going to edit her out because she is adorable. Anyways, we are a little less than halfway through November and I wanted to kind of check in and let you know where I am on my Backlist Binge readathon. It's mostly going well. Of course, there are some books that are like maybe a little newer that I wanted to read, but that's not really the purpose of the readathon anyways. It was to read books that I already own for that month. And with that, I have been doing well so far. Some of them are just arcs that I've had for a long time. Most of you know, but an arc is an advanced reader's copy that I've gotten from the publisher, so while the book might not be released yet, I've had it for a while. So I do want to talk about all the books that I've read up till now in November. So I'm just going to start at the beginning and we will go from there. So the first book that I have finished is Why We Love Baseball by Joe Posnanski. This is kind of funny because I started this book back in September when my husband and I took our trip to Olympic National Park, and we love baseball, we love to listen to stuff about it, and so we started listening to the audiobook together. And because we don't have a car, we don't like go places like that together much, it took us a while to get through because it's very long. But we were driving like 2.5 hours every day of that trip. So we were able to get through a lot of it. And then we just got back from Joshua Tree for our anniversary, which is today. We've been married for 11 years, so that's exciting. But we were able to finish it on that trip. So this one's been a long time coming. It was 5 stars. It was so funny and well written, and just like, it really did remind you like why we really do love baseball. It was such a great book and I will definitely recommend it to any baseball fan. If you're not a baseball fan, I don't know how much you would enjoy it, but I think for the baseball fans among us, definitely a must read. Now on to the books that I had selected for prompts on my Backlist Binge readathon, and the book I had that was released the most long ago is Night by Elie Wiesel, and I did finish this. I gave it 5 stars. It was short and to the point, but gut-punching. Like, I can't even explain it. This was so... I feel like I had to keep reminding myself, like, this was a real thing. This really happened. And, like, that might sound silly, especially coming from a Jew, but, like, the horrors of the Holocaust are still, like, so real, and it was just, it was so good, but also terrible, if that makes sense. Next, I read The Hookup Plan, which is the 3rd book in the Boyfriend Project series. I have had this book for about a year and a half because this came out in September of 2022, and I had an arc of it before that. And I just now read it, which is kind of interesting because this was a book that I was kind of holding on to and not wanting to read because the first book in this series I thought was like pretty good. I think I gave it 4 stars. The second one I was obsessed with. I actually read them in the opposite order. The second one, so good. I loved it so much. And so I think I was kind of like waiting on this one because I was like, I'm gonna love it and then the series is gonna be over and I'm gonna be sad. Well, sadly, that was not the case. This was my least favorite of the 3. This I gave 3 stars. There was a lot to like about it, but I didn't like the main character as much. She was kind of self-righteous, I don't know. And there was some good conversations around expectations and like trying to let go of like the way her parents, her dad specifically, like made her feel. But I just didn't really care for the relationship. It started out as like an enemies to friends with benefits to lovers kind of thing, but the Friends with Benefits kind of just like felt weird because it felt like she was like using him, and I just didn't like that. It felt like truly all she was interested in with him was sex, and that he was trying to have a relationship, and like those kind of situations don't work out when one person has feelings and the other doesn't. And it just, I mean, it's a romance. Obviously she came around, but I don't know, it just wasn't for me. There was also like a lot of sex from like chapter 2, and again, totally fine if that's your thing, but for me, I was just like, okay, can we move on? So that was a 3-star read, not my fave, but I am glad I got to check it off my list. Next, I read Winter Girls by Lori Halse Anderson, and this was what I had for the category of a book by an author I've read from before. I have read Speak by this author and loved that. It is a YA book, but like I read it when I was a YA and loved it, and then read it again a couple years back and still loved it. So this was not as good as that, but I still did enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. A lot of people and like reading reviews afterwards have said that the writing is sort of pretentious and like needlessly, I don't know the word I'm trying to say, but like very, very like literary and artsy, sort of like repeating the same word over and over and over to try to like drive home a point. And I feel like in a lot of books I hate that, but I actually loved it in this one. I don't know why. It just really did work well for me. It didn't feel like, I don't know. It felt like it worked. I'll just leave it at that. So this was about a girl who is very deep into an eating disorder, and she has been in treatment before, and then one day her best friend, former best friend, is found dead in a hotel room, and she kind of just is trying to deal with that. Additionally, the night that she died, the ex-best friend had called the main character's phone like 33 times or something. Can't remember the number, but it's sort of significant. But anyways, so she's like, why did she call me so many times? We're not friends anymore. It was really good. It was definitely an interesting story. The only reason I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 was because I think I'm just a little too old to appreciate it fully. Just 35 is not like 17. So it's just a little harder for me to relate to stories like this, and I understand that it's not written for adults, but I still try to keep that in mind. It was really good. If you are a YA reader, it is definitely one I'd recommend. However, huge trigger warnings. This is not for anyone that is triggered or easily rattled by talks of eating disorders and self-harm. And the next book, the last one that I finished on my trip, was Meet the Benedettos by Katie Cotugno. This I adored. This was 5 stars. So this is also an arc. This book comes out, I think, in December. It might be January, but I think it's December. And it was so great. This is kind of pitched as Pride and Prejudice meets the Kardashians, and I feel like that's a really, really good way to sum it up. I mean, it's clearly meant to be like Pride and Prejudice because there's characters Bingley and Darcy and a family of girls, and so like it's not like inspired by, like, it is very much Pride and Prejudice, but I loved it. This author had another book a couple years ago called Birds of California that I absolutely loved too. These are only, both of them, about like 250 pages, so really quick and easy to get through. So it's about this family with 5 daughters, and we're following the second oldest for the most part. We kind of bounce around a little bit, but it's mostly the second oldest, Lily. And they became famous because her dad had this chain of pizza and meatball shops that became really big. They had like commercials, and the girls became sort of socialites, and then they were filmed for basically like a Kardashians TV show for a couple years, and so now their fortune is kind of dwindling after the show was canceled, and there's a lot more to it than that. But then they live in this fancy neighborhood, but their house is kind of starting to fall apart and they don't have the money to fix it, but they're still trying to live the Kardashian lifestyle. This guy moves in next door who's essentially like the new like Captain America, like Marvel superhero, and his best friend from Juilliard who moves in, and they like sort of become friendly with the family, but Lily and Will Darcy, who moves in next door, start to like butt heads because she overhears him saying something bad about her at a party. It goes from there. It was so funny. It was so sweet. It was so cute. Like, and it like touched me too, because there were some like really emotional parts. And I really loved it. I will read anything that this woman writes. She's mainly a YA author, but this is now her second adult book. And so I'm hoping that she's maybe sticking to adult books now, because I loved that. But yeah, this is one I've owned for a while, and I'm glad that I finally read it. Also, it was really funny because I was in Joshua Tree, California, and part of the book takes place there. And I was like, this is just so weird because, like, what are the odds that I'm here? I live across the country, and that's where this book is, and this is what I decided to read. Anyways, I thought it was weird. So those are the books that I have finished so far this month. I'm also reading Lys Story, which is on my TBR as the book that I've owned the longest. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing it. I'm about 44% in. I do have the physical book, but I saw that the audiobook was available from the library, and so I thought that might be a little better than having to lug around this, 700-page book because I'm always traveling. I was on vacation and now I have to go back to work tomorrow. And so I just figured that would be a little bit easier. And I'm liking the audiobook a lot. This book has taken me a little bit to get into. It's weird. It's a little like back and forth. It's written very, very Stephen King-like with a lot of weird little interludes and stuff like that, but I am enjoying it, so hopefully I continue to, because like I know this book is kind of you love it or you hate it, and I'm hoping that I love it. I currently am liking it a lot, but I think we're like just starting to get into like the nitty-gritty of the story and like finding out what this man's secret was. It's about a woman whose husband was a very famous author, a la Stephen King, and he has died 2 years earlier, and she's finally getting around to like going through his stuff, including like these manuscripts and like short stories and ideas and stuff that he never released, and people are like hounding her, professors and literary people in the industry, because they want to release it. And so it's just kind of goes from there, and then we are kind of flashing back and forth from like her and her husband when they met, and like going through all of their past and whatever, all of that. So I am liking it. Obviously, he's got like some dark stuff in his past that we're just now getting to, and she has her own family stuff, but that is kind of where I'm at so far. I am liking it, but it did take me a while to get there, and I'm still kind of like skeptical if I'm gonna love this, but we're gonna find out, so stay tuned. I also read about half of a ebook that is called The Guest by B.A. Paris, who I have read from before, and her books are very polarizing to me, like in my own brain, because she's had, I guess that's not really fair to say, because there's one book that I absolutely hated. I thought it was absolutely the worst piece of garbage I've ever read. And then her other books I've either felt like were pretty good or I've really, really liked. So, I don't know. I am liking this one. It is very slow paced, but I'm enjoying it. It doesn't come out, I think, until March, but again, I've had it for a while, so I thought it was time to get going with it. I've also read about half of a book called Israel, A Simple Guide to the Most Misunderstood Country on Earth by Noah Tishby. This is just, me trying to educate myself in the simplest way possible, so I am enjoying that so far. I'm only about a quarter of the way through, but it's definitely one I'm kind of taking it slow on purpose, reading it in chunks just to kind of like give myself the grace of like, you're learning. I don't know, hopefully this makes sense. I'm just taking my time with it.
Side note, what I didn't say so well is that I am uneducated on this topic and I'm just trying to take it in doses because it is very complicated and there is a lot to unpack there.
So for the rest of the month, I wanted to talk about my reading plans. I'm going to try to get through this quickly, so hopefully this video is not too long. But the first book is White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better. I've already talked about this. This is my book outside of your comfort zone / regular genre that I've had for a while, so excited about that. I have Starter Villain, which I can't remember if I put on my most recent purchase or 2023 because this and the next book I bought at the same time, and they were both in 2023. Got them from the Aardvark book box, but yeah, one of them is this. And the other is Death Valley by Melissa Broder. I'm looking forward to reading this. I was going to watch Allie's video over at All I Do Is Read. I don't know how she wants that pronounced. All I Do Is Read, but Allie, whatever. I'll link her. But she did read this, and I kind of skipped most of the video just because I didn't want to be spoiled, but it did seem like she liked this but didn't love it, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see. I haven't read anything from this author, so I'm going in completely blind and looking forward to reading this, though. I have 4 more. We'll see if I can get through all of these. I mean, I do have a lot of work coming up, so that's always kind of hit or miss on if I get a lot of reading done, but I am off like the entire last week of the month, so that should be a good time to read, but I would like to get through Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King. I've had this for over a year, and so I would like to get to it. I know this is a lot of people's favorite. I'm just a little nervous because like it doesn't have any chapters at all, so I don't know. Maybe I'll save this for like when I am off in the last week of the month, just because it might be easier to have big blocks of time to sit down and read, where chapters would maybe be less necessary, but who knows. Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. I have had this for at least a year, and I have wanted to read it. This is a young adult book, but it is set in a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club in 1954. It's kind of a coming-of-age story, I think, and I think it looks cute. I've had it again for a long time, so I am excited to finally get to it. Bright Lights, Big Christmas by Mary Kay Andrews. This is a upcoming book. I think it's actually already out. I don't know. I think it's already out, but I did get sent this by the publisher, St. Martin's Press, and I am looking forward to reading this. I didn't love Mary Kay Andrews' last Christmas book, The Santa Suit, but I'm hoping this one is a little better. I mean, it's pretty short little novella, and it looks cute. This I've had since I think like September or August, so I'm glad I'm gonna get to it. I'm finally excited. Like, Christmas feels like it's here. Every time when we get back from our anniversary trip, I'm like, okay, now it's Christmas. So bear with me. You're gonna see a lot of Christmas content coming up. Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. This is my book club's pick for this month, so this is the only book that I will be reading this month that I haven't owned for a while, but I was able to get it on Pango Books for pretty cheap, so I'm happy about that. And this looks really good. I'm excited for it. I really loved Happiness Falls, which was this author's most recent book, and my whole book club is really excited to read this, so hopefully it doesn't let us down. So those are my reading plans for the rest of the month and kind of a little wrap up on what I've read so far. I'm sure, as usual, I will get through a couple extra maybe that I didn't put in this video because I'm always finding a new audiobook or a new ebook or whatever to read, and I just forget about them when I go to film, so we'll hear about them at the end of the month. So if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you would. Down in the comments, I would love to know how your reading is going, especially if you're doing my Backlist Binge readathon. I would love to know how it's going for you, if you're able to stick to the prompts, or even if you're just getting through a couple books and then a couple new ones and whatever. It's all in good fun, so no pressure there. I just would love to hear how it's going. So I am so glad you decided to watch this video, and I will see you in the next one.